Daf Chesed Aleph from the Mishnah.
28A, did you say?
28A.
First Mishnah, got it. Key.
Okay. Hamevi get somebody who brings a divorce. So what happened was the husband was either old or ill. And obviously the concern here is, well, maybe by the time you give the divorce, he's dead.
Question, Rabbi.
Yes.
Why does it matter?
You can't. So again, we're talking about it. There's two types of messengers. There's a shliach l'halacha and a shliach l'kabbalah.
Right.
Shliach l'halacha is the husband's messenger to give the get.
Right.
The divorce is not effectuated until he actually transacts the divorce.
So,
Which means either that
So
the woman
that you're
receives
saying-
it or the woman's messenger receives it.
so you're
and-
saying there's a school of thought that says that it has to come directly from the husband? I know I'm dense here, but it's just if it was already in motion with a shliach, then
The
what difference does it make?
shliach is just he serves as an extended hand, so to
Okay.
speak, of the messenger of the husband, and therefore, if the husband is dead, then you can't give the divorce anymore because it's ain't get lachar, so you can't divorce after you die.
Hmm.
So if the husband dies, then it's a get lachar, so the divorce was effectuated after the sender husband has passed away. Mishnah says, you can give it on the presumption that he's still alive. Similarly, Bas Yisrael Hanasur L'Kohen, if you have a Yisrael, in other words, you have a Jewish a woman who's not a Kohen, she got married to a Kohen, and her husband took a long journey. Even though there's a risk of highwaymen and pirates, but she can presume her husband's still alive, and therefore she can continue to eat truma. Third point, somebody who sends sacrifice from outside of Israel, and he sends it with a group of people to go to Israel and bring the sacrifice. So you can bring the sacrifice on the presumption that he's still alive. And the simple idea here is this is a classical instance of chazaka d'mikara. Chazaka d'mikara states that anyone's given status presumably doesn't change. If you had an initial status, which is being alive, presumably that status has not changed. And obviously the classical Gemara about Chazak Demikar is V'yotza Kohen min Abayis. Parshas Mitzvah, where a Kohen sees a nega, it's a sort of spiritual affliction on the wall of a house. He leaves the house and pronounces it as Tameh. Now the rule is that if the affliction shrinks in size, the house is not Tameh. So now hold on a second. The Kohen sees the nega, then he walks out of the house, and then he pronounces it as Tameh. Maybe it shrunk from the moment that he saw it till the moment he left the house. The fact that he can pronounce Tameh presumes of Chazaka d'Mikara that one can, the presumption that given status, and in any given status, one could presume that it didn't change. Okay. Amar Rava says, this, when we talk here about an older person or a sick person, this is only true of a person that has not reached the age of the age of 80 years old, or a chayla, or an ill person. An illness, most people live. Most people who are ill live through their illness. Let's say you have somebody who's between 80 and 90 years old, or you have someone who's a geisis. A geisis is someone who's on his deathbed. Sharav geisis and lamisa. Most geisin will die. Then loy, in that case, you do not give a divorce. You need to verify first that they're still alive. That's the Gemara. Abaya says, hold on a second. Hamevi get afilu ben mea shana. If somebody's bringing a divorce and the husband is 100 years old, yes, he's much more than 80 years old. He gives her the divorce on the presumption that this elderly gentleman is still alive. Tiyufta, this seems to be a very difficult question to Rava. Rava's claiming that an 80-year-old you need to verify first he's alive before you give it. Now, over here you have a 100-year-old, you don't need to verify. So the Gemara first presumes that this is truly a unresolved difficulty in Rava. Therefore, it's tiyufta. It's a very difficult question. However, then the Gemara comes up with a resolution. Another possibility is kivan de iflig. Once somebody gets over 90 years old, so he's past his living through his 80s, so then we say he'll live a lot longer also. As most people die between 80 and 90. But those that live over 90, so then you could presume that they'll live a lot longer as well. Rabbi Abaya Rabba. Abaya had the following question to Rabba. Tonight we learned Tamevi get v'hinicha zakin achayla. Somebody brings a divorce and one second. Somebody who brings a divorce and the woman, the husband is either old or ill. So Abai quotes our Mishnah. Okay, so what do we see from our Mishnah? We are not concerned that maybe the guy will die. But hold on a second. I'll ask you a question. If a husband says to his wife, he doesn't want her to be eligible for Yibum. He says, I'm going to divorce you an hour before I die. And he gives her a divorce. So when he dies, she's divorced an hour earlier. What's the halacha? Asur lecha b'truma miyad. Immediately she cannot eat truma. Now this is a difficulty. Again, in our Mishnah, he gives his wife a divorce. He tells her, he gives the messenger a divorce. The messenger doesn't need to check that he's still alive. He gives the divorce anyway. And over here, he says, I'm divorcing you an hour before I die. And now all of a sudden we're concerned, well, maybe he'll die in an hour. Why exactly are we concerned? Maybe he'll die. Our Mishnah says, there's no concern somebody will die. Okay, and the Gemara goes through a number of different resolutions until we find the final answer. So I'm relay Truma Gittin Karobim. So you're asking a question from Truma and Gittin. Truma Efshar, get Loy Efshar. Truma, there's a simple solution. Just don't eat Truma, eat Chulin instead. By divorce, however, either she is or isn't divorced. And therefore we can't be machmer. Because by being machmer, we're basically forcing her to stay unmarried. That's not fair to her. As opposed to with Truma, what we're doing is forcing her to eat Chulin, and that we're able to do. So Mara says, okay, Varami Truma. Okay, so you don't like the question from Gittin. But our Mishnah gives an example of Truma as well. We had a woman, Tanan, Bas Yisrael and a Sula Kayan. She's not a Kayan, she's married to a Kayan, so she's allowed to eat Truma. Her husband goes on a long business trip. She can eat Truma, presumably on the presumption that he's still alive. So this is a scenario of Truma. We have another scenario. What's the difference between a woman whose husband goes on a trip, or a woman whose husband says you're divorced an hour before I die? We're not concerned that the guy is going to die. So then why can't they sit down and eat Truma? We're 2/3 of the way down on Chav Chesed Aleph. You got it? Yeah. And the Mishnah indicated that if somebody sends a divorce and he's old or ill, then the divorce is given anyway, and because we presume he's still alive. And similarly, a woman whose husband is traveling, she can presume her husband's still alive, so she's allowed to eat truma. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so here we see clearly that even with regard to truma, we're not concerned the guy's going to die. So Rada says it's different. Why is it different? Because over there he prohibits it an hour before he dies. Okay, well, what exactly does that mean? In other words, because it's prohibited an hour before he dies, so maybe we always have to presume that maybe he'll die. The Gemara doesn't directly address the question. The Gemara says, why exactly is the presumption? Because he says an hour before he dies, why is the presumption that he's going to die? Who says anyone will die? Who says he'll die just because he gave the divorce an hour before he dies doesn't mean he'll die first. Maybe she'll die first. In other words, it's sort of a difference without a distinction. So you use the word an hour before you die. What difference does that make? Does that mean you're going to die first? No. Abaya says, like Hashem. This question here is a fundamental question in general. Are we concerned somebody's going to die? And this is the debate between Rameir and Rabbi Yehudah. Now, the Gemara doesn't directly address it. The Gemara indirectly addresses it. It's time we learned. We saw this brisa, if you remember, in the sugya of Brera, which we saw on Shabbos. Somebody who buys wine from kusim. Kusim are Jewish people that don't keep the rules of Trumas and Maasros. He says he wants to take a drink immediately, but he doesn't want to take off Trumas and Maasros right away. So what does he do? He says Truma. So basically, he says all the Trumas and Maasros that I'm going to take off, they're going to be chosen later, but they're removed now. In other words, right now, all the Trumas and Maasros are taken off. They're separated. And which one is Trumas and Maasros? I'm going to decide that in 10 days from now. So this is an example of Brera. According to Rameir, it works. And Rabbi Yehudah, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Eisron. Rabbi Yehudah, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon all hold it's prohibited. Okay, and the Gemara explained previously that actually it may not be dependent on Brera. It could be that everybody holds Yesh Brera. The debate here is maybe the barrel will break. Who's concerned with the barrel breaking? Rabbi Yehudah. So evidently Rabbi Yehudah holds that even though a person's previous status and a barrel's previous status is unbroken and alive, however, we're still concerned that maybe things will change. So we're concerned the barrel will break, and we're concerned that the person will die. And Rameir is not concerned with either one. So the sort of distinction between the two, our Mishnah is clearly Rameir, who's not concerned that the guy will die. And the Bryce that says you can't eat truma an hour that the woman's divorced an hour before he dies, she can't eat truma. That's going according to Rabbi Yehudah. That's concerned maybe she'll die. So that's the first resolution. Rava says, it's the obvious difference. Shema meis lechashinan, shema yomos chashinan. We're not concerned that maybe somebody died. We are concerned that maybe somebody will die, because everybody will die. Right? They say 100% of motorcyclists will die, right? And everybody else too. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so Shema Meis. Let's go through this. In the our Mishnah, what's the concern? She's eating. The woman's eating truma. She's married to a kohen. The question here is maybe he's already dead. And that we say, no, we have no reason to presume he already died. Same thing is true with the divorce. In order for him to not be able to give a divorce, we need to say that the guy has died. And we don't presume the guy died. However, in the scenario where the guy gives his wife a divorce an hour before he dies, so the concern here is not that he died. The concern is, well, maybe he'll die in the next hour. And guess what? Well, maybe anybody will die, because everybody will die. And therefore, even though we don't presume that he actually died, but we are concerned that maybe he will die. We together on this?
And that's because he's got the condition there.
Correct. Because he basically he instigated that he made it. He did not determine her eligibility for truma based on whether he's alive or dead, but whether he's going to survive the hour. And the Chazaka says that nothing changed, but doesn't tell you that it won't change in the next hour. What was that?
That's interesting.
So yeah, this is one of the calls a Londische difference. This is a very profound logical distinction. We were saying that to say that he already died, we're not going to do that. To say that maybe he'll die, well, maybe everyone will die, and there's no reason to presume that maybe he won't die. Chazaka, all Chazaka tells you is the status didn't change. It doesn't tell you the status won't change. And therefore, we are concerned the status will change, because obviously it's going to change for every single person who lives in the world, whether they drive motorcycles or not. But and therefore she cannot eat truma, because there's always the concern maybe he will die, and there's no indication, the fact that he's lived until now, that says that maybe he won't. Only Rav Ada bar Masna l'Rava. Rav Ada bar Masna says to Rava, "V'hanud tikashema yamasu upligi." Okay, breaking the barrel. What's the example of that? That's an example of shema yamus. Excellent question, right? What happens? He's there taking off Trumas Maasros, and he's saying that I'm taking off Trumas Maasros now, and I'm gonna actually separate it. I'm gonna decide which portion is Trumas and Maasros in 10 days from now when I pour out of the barrel. That's an example of Shema Yomos. Maybe the barrel will break, and okay, maybe it will. Uplig in this debate. I'm reviewing the Miskarta shiny nude Evshna Masal Shomer. Yehudah says no, nude is in a different category. So the barrel's a different story. Why? Because maybe he'll give it over to a watchman and it won't break. The watchman needs a watchman. In other words, this is why you trust in the watchman. Maybe the watchman himself will break it. So Rava rephrased what he said, and he said that everyone agrees that Shema Meis Lo Chashinan. The presumption that maybe his status has already changed. He went from being alive to dead. We do not presume that his status changed. It's Chazaka de Mikara. We presume that if he was previously alive, his status has not changed. Now, with regard to his status changing in the future, that is debate between Rabbi Yehudah and Rabbi Meir. And you're right, the brisa that says that if a woman gets divorced an hour before her husband dies, she cannot eat truma. That is according to the opinion that says Shema Yomos. We are concerned maybe he will die in the future. Okay, final Gemara. Somebody who sends a chatas offering to be brought from outside of Israel. We bring it even though we don't know if he's alive or dead, because we presume he's still alive. So Gemara asks, "V'beina smicha." One of the services of one of the components of the sacrifice is smicha. Smicha is where one puts his hands on top of the animal and pushes down and confesses his sins. So Rav Yosef, and obviously if he's not present, how can he confess his sins? It cannot be done with the messenger. Rav Yosef, the korban in general, by the way, virtually anything that needs to be done with speech cannot be done with the messenger. Any Torah commandment that requires speech typically cannot be done with the messenger. So sometimes it could be done through a process called Shemei Ka'ina. Shemei Ka'ina is not shlichus, but Shemei Ka'ina is that hearing it as if you say it. Okay, but regardless, he's not present there. He can't make a shliach. So how does it work? Rav Yosef b'korban noshim. Rav Yosef is of the opinion that women do not do smicha, and therefore it's a woman's sacrifice. Papa says it's with a bird. There's no smicha on a bird. Okay, now the Gemara wants to know, why do we have 3 examples of Shema Meis, that we're not concerned that maybe he died? 3 examples are: number 1, a divorce; number 2, a woman who's eating truma whose husband goes on a journey; and number 3, a woman who sends a sacrifice, that they bring the sacrifice and presume she's still alive. Why do you need all 3? It's richa. It's necessary. If we would just say, if the mission would have just said divorce, by divorce, there's no way around it. We have to basically allow a divorce to go through. Truma, we could say maybe she just shouldn't eat. She should avoid eating truma because it's a chumrah that's sort of doable. The ashman and truma is in the afshar. Truma also, if they're very poor, then it does save them a lot of money for her to be able to eat truma. But with regard to sacrifice, maybe if there's a doubt whether or not the sender is still alive, maybe we shouldn't bring the sacrifice. Kamash Malan, that in all 3 scenarios, we will allow them to bring the sacrifice. We will allow the woman to eat truma, and we allow the messenger to provide the divorce. Together?
So
Okay.
this is how it worked with David and Melech when they before
No, did not work David Melech this way. David Melech worked retroactively.
they worked retroactive.
They were me'achshav in achsar. So the point that Jared is making, which I think we'll get to it later on Gittin, is that when King David sent his soldiers to battle, obviously there's many in every battle. There's always going to be people that are missing in action, MIA, and what he would do is that before they went out to battle, they would write out a divorce to their wives, and they would say that if I don't return from the battle, then this divorce should be retroactively dated from this point in time. And then they'd go out to battle.
Does that still work?
Yeah, so there was talk about this after the Dakar incident in Israel. You know the story of the Dakar, the Israeli submarine that disappeared. Yeah, was found 40 years later. Ultimately, the Rabbanot permitted their wives to remarry. We spoke about that in Yevamis, what the methodology was behind that, how they permitted the woman to remarry. But there were quite a few women that carried 50 people on board. Yeah, the sale of the car is in Haifa now.
Is it?
Cover the sale? Yeah, it's in front of the Maritime Museum. I've seen it. Okay. It says the Mishnah, Shloish Dvarim, Omer Rabbi Elazar ben Parta, Lefnei Chacham, the Kaima was Dvarav. 3 things Rabbi Elazar ben Parta said in front of the Chacham, and they agreed to him. Number 1, Al Ir Shehikifa Karkam. There was a city surrounded under siege. Val Sfina Hamaturefes Biyam, a ship that was going through a storm. And Val Hayotza Lidin, and somebody who was going out to a trial which carries the penalty of capital punishment. Shehem Becheskes Kayam, these people you can presume they're still alive. However, Aval Ir Shekiv Shekarkim, if a city has been conquered by an assaulting force, or Usfinish of the Bayam, a ship that has sunk, the Hayotzi Laharag, and somebody who's being led out to be executed. We have to presume that at any given point in time, these people are imminently about to die, and also we have to treat them as maybe they might still be alive. So they get the stringencies of both categories. What does that mean? If a Jewish woman is married to a Kohen, she cannot eat truma. Why? Because maybe her husband died. Let's say you have a Kohen who marries a regular woman. A woman who's a Kohen who marries a Kohenet, who marries a Jewish regular man and does not have children. If her husband dies, she is permitted to go back to eating truma because she's a Kohenes. However, if her husband is still alive, she may not eat truma. And over here, she may not eat truma because we have to presume her husband might still be alive. So it's an example of the stringency of being alive and the stringency of being dead. Okay. The next Gemara I felt about 4 times in the middle of preparing, so I may not have it down pat. Okay, let's begin. Amar Rav Yosef says as follows: Lo shanu ela bebezin shel Yisrael. This is only true of a Jewish court. Aval bebezin shel ovdei kechavim kivan de gomer leidina lektala miktal katlei. A non-Jewish court, once they rule that someone is going to be executed, miktal katlei, they kill him fairly quickly. Abaye says, in other words, a Jewish court, even after they convict the person and declare him guilty of capital punishment, it could still take a while for them to actually execute him because they'll be looking for some sort of redemptive, aspect where they're able to appeal the conviction. However, in a non-Jewish court, once somebody's guilty, they'll execute him immediately. Abaye says, Bezin shel Avichav Nami, the Mikabel Shochta. Abaye says, no, hold on, in a non-Jewish court as well, even after there's bribery going on. They work it out. They arrange it. So maybe they'll arrange it and I'll be able to live longer. Amar Lei, so Rav Yosef says, when do they accept bribes before Pursi Shanmig? Pursi Shanmig is the Aramaic word, the for the conclusion, the ruling. After the case is ruled, they don't accept bribes, and therefore he'll be killed fairly quickly. In that case, we do not presume he's still alive. If a Jewish court declares somebody guilty of capital punishment, we can still presume he's alive. If a non-Jewish court declares someone guilty, rules that someone's guilty, then we'll execute him fairly quickly. Meisvei. Ask the Gemara, anytime two people get up and they testify as follows. Okay, as follows. Let's say two witnesses, Jewish witnesses, they come in to a court and they say, you see this guy walking down the street? You should just know that a previous court has already convicted him of murder, and he's guilty, and he's supposed to be executed. What happened was, as they convicted him, he ran away. He escaped. And therefore you have to go ahead and kill him. The halacha is we listen to them. We go through the case, and if we can verify the witness's testimony, then indeed we will kill the suspected prison escapee. Now, hold on a second. If we're saying that every time a Jewish court convicts someone of capital punishment, there's a strong possibility that they will find a redemptive factor and overturn the conviction. So if that's the case, then over here as well, how could two people testify that somebody was convicted in court and guilty of capital punishment? Well, maybe after they convicted him, they overturned the conviction. So even if he ran away, how are you ever able to testify that a runaway convict convicted of capital punishment is guilty of capital punishment? Maybe after he ran away, they found a redemptive factor and they overturned the conviction. Which get on the question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Gemara says, Dilma b'reach shiny. If somebody runs away, that's sort of a different story. I'm not sure exactly what the difference would be. Okay. The article brings on two different reasons. One of them sort of is the obvious one, as they say in English. What is it? Escaping is the greatest indicator of the word for this is an expression. Admission of guilt. So you escape from prison, it's the greatest admission of guilt. And therefore, this is an admission sort of that they could not find any factor to overturn the conviction. And the other version is, the other explanation they bring is that the truth of the matter is that we typically are not concerned. Once the ruling is given, we are not concerned that a redemptive factor is actually going to be found, but we keep it in mind. So we're more lenient with somebody who stays in the prison system until he's going to be executed, and we continue to look for a way to overturn the conviction. But once somebody runs away, then we ignore that and we treat him to the letter of the law, and he, as soon as he's found, he's executed. Okay, Toshma. Shomei mi betzin shel Yisrael shel yoimrim ish pleini meis, ish pleini nerag. He hears from a Jewish court that they pronounce this person is dead, this person was murdered, was killed, executed. Yasiu es ishtay. They're allowed to testify and allow his wife to remarry. Mi kuman trisen shel avdei gechavim. What exactly is a kuman trisen? Okay, it's the executioners of a non-Jewish court. They hear them say, "Ish pleini meis, this person's dead. Ish pleini nerag, we executed this person. Al yasiu es ishtay. They should not allow his wife to remarry." Okay, my meis and my nerag. What does it mean he died? What does it mean he was executed? Ilema meis mamish. if he died, it means he actually died. If narag mamash, he was executed. The Kavasei Gabi that would be similar with regard to the non-Jewish court executioners. Why can't they marry? Why can't his wife remarry? Hakaimalon, we learned. To call Masech Vitumbai, Himuni Mehemnilei. When a non-Jew says something in a manner that he's not directly trying to testify, so he says something as part of his own story or part of another story, and in the details he happens to mention some specifics that there was a Jewish guy there who died, then we do rely on it. So therefore, why would the Bryce say we don't rely? Elalav, it must be that what does mace mean? He dies. Yotzelamas. He's going out to be killed. Nerag, he was executed. Yotzelaharag. 1 second. Right. In other words, they're saying that the person is about to die, or he's about to be executed. Uktani, okay. Now, Uktani, Bezesha Yisrael, Yasiu Zeshlei. Now, with the non-Jewish executioners, they're not testifying that he actually died. They're testifying that he went out to be killed, to be executed. Okay, now with regard to a Jewish court, we say that if the Jewish court took him out to be executed, we presume that they actually killed him. And the question is why? Why are we presuming that a Jewish court who takes somebody out to be executed will actually kill him if we say that they're still looking for a method to overturn the conviction? Rabbi Yossi says only a non-Jewish court executes immediately. But a Jewish court, even if the guy is being taken to execution, maybe they find some sort of redemptive factor and they overturn the conviction. So says, mace mamish, v'nerag mamish. The truth of the matter is, mace means he actually died, nerag means he was actually executed. Samar says, no. We're talking about where mace means he actually died. Nerag means he was executed. Okay. Now you're going to ask me, so why is a non-Jewish executioner not believed to say that somebody died? If it's Mesiach L'Fitumai, in other words, he wasn't directly testifying about it. Sorry, I'm Right. So Gemara is explaining as follows: the truth of the matter is that if they say that he actually died, that they saw him dead, they would be believed. But over here, the concern is that they will boast that he was executed even before he was actually executed, and therefore we don't believe them. However, in the scenario of Rav Yosef, so I'm sorry, it's false. I misspoke. Okay. Again, the Bryce that says that if they testify the guy died, we don't actually believe that they died. What does that mean? That's because they will say that somebody died when the only thing that happened was that he went to trial. When Rav Yosef explained the Mishnah, Rav Yosef was saying that when we know someone was taken to be executed, we know he's executed. by a non-Jewish court. But by a Jewish court, we presume that they waited around, and therefore we do not presume that he was actually executed. However, if the Jewish court says he was executed, he was killed, then we believe them that the man was actually killed and he can't divorce his wife. Okay, what time is it? We'll see. Tomorrow is the exact same Gemara, exactly the opposite. So then Rabbi Yosef changed his mind. Rabbi Yosef said that a Jewish court kills right away, and a non-Jewish court delays. And you have the exact same Gemara, the opposite direction. Okay, let's stop here.